Well, Brian, we've been talking about who's going to own what network platform and who's in charge here and what's going on, but it also comes down to who's watching this. And at the same time as all this other chaos is going on, we're several weeks into the new rating system, the big data plus panel era, where the wrestling shows, and we've talked about this, have taken a bigger hit than any other programming on television. And our friend Thurston Howell III over at WrestleNomics has sent out an email with some information and has compiled some numbers. And apparently he's got I don't know how these things are done, but he's got the information on what the shows have been rated under the new system, but what they would have been with just the old system. And he's got some comments from the big high muckety muck in charge of this whole fiasco. Can we just talk about this for a minute?
Yeah, let's talk about it. A lot of it's confusing, and a lot of listeners are still getting in touch with us and saying, "Where are the ratings? We love the ratings segments." Not only did the ratings change, but immediately there was a lockdown on information about quarter hours, for instance. They sent what seemed to be indicated to be a threatening sort of email from their legal department to Brandon Thurston, and we're going to talk about his reporting here. Let's plug it. WrestleNomics on Patreon. And there's a lot here about what's happening now and how it would look, I guess, under the old system, and a lot here, as I said.
Well, and that's the thing is that they've clamped down on some of the information getting out in those quarter hours. They were fun. They were fun. But at the same time, we've said that everybody's agreeing that the wrestling programs have gotten hit a little bit harder than, in some case, a lot harder than the other programming with this new method. And there's a comparison here. And he has compared the AE Dynamite, for example, with both methodologies. And starting after their last preemption, when they got put on a Tuesday night, we'll go with the next several shows. Whereas the next week, the 15th of October, the new information had them at 534. The old information had them at 531. So it was a little bit better, just almost the same, but a little better. But then the next week, the new method was 477, the old method 527. Following week, the new method 459, the old method 544. Now, again, 527, 544 compared to what they were doing. Even in September, they were up to 638 with the old method. They're still down, but this is down worse. The next comparison was 543 with the old method to 497 with the new method. And then blood and guts. Actually, the old method would have given them 608 and the new method gave them 600. So it was almost the same thing.
That's fascinating that they would end up like
But
that.
But regardless of the methodology, they're still in that 450 to 550 pocket, and their big event got 600. But with SmackDown, and part of this, he makes note that we'll go SmackDown and Collision just to get a complete picture, but the Collision differences are the smallest because it's the smallest rated show with the smallest number of, smallest sampling. So those differences are going to be smaller. With SmackDown, which has pretty healthy numbers, it's really marked because it's a much bigger number, even though it may be same percentage. With just going for the last 4 or 5 shows. On October 17, the old method would have been 1.332 million. The new method was 1.18. October 24th, the old method would have been 1.325 million. The new is 1.147. The Halloween show then dipped. The old method would have been 1.097 million. The new method was 933,000. And then they're back up the next week. It should have been 1.304. It was 1.141. So they have lost consistently 200,000 viewers off of whatever the old number would have been versus what that's been since the start of the thing, all the way back in September. 200,000, almost 200,000, 200,000.
But it's important to note this is an unexplained discrepancy across the board for wrestling, but it's a little different for different shows. That doesn't mean it's wrong. You know, and especially with AEW, when you see the ebb and flow of their shows where the numbers at times meet. It's not like everything's just going in one direction. SmackDown, it's literally just, you know, you made a second little line right under the main one the entire way. It makes you wonder if this is slightly more accurate. And again, I'm not saying that's the total viewers for SmackDown, but maybe that is for first run airing on TV. Not counting anything else, but big panel or big data plus panel is supposed to count outside sources too, I would think.
And there is some element of, well, you don't get a lot of wrestling in the sports bars and etc. But and just with Collision, to finish that up, their differences are smaller because even under the old method, they're doing 261, 273, 298, 256, 317, and then 235. And the new method is 20,000 lower, 20,000 lower, 30,000 low. It's almost negligible, really, the difference. But again, the CW network has even complained because NXT is still its leading show, but it still is under the new methodology, but the gap isn't as wide anymore. Even with NXT, they've been 9% lower on average in total viewership, but 27% lower in 1849 and 29% in 25 to 54. And so now the CW network itself is that we've expressed to Nielsen our deep frustration, the broadcast network stated, and they're complaining to Nielsen and trying to get him, hey, can we tighten this shit up somehow? But who knows what's right, as you said.
Yeah, and again, I wish we kind of had these sort of breakdowns for the lead-in shows too. You know, is there a similar, or what is the ebb and flow for the other shows right around these shows? Because that would tell you a lot too. CW, they've complained, they're questioning the credibility of the methodology. The quote here, and again, WrestleNomics has all of this on their Patreon. The sudden and substantial discrepancy in WWE NXT viewership reported by Big Data relative to long-established viewing patterns is inexplicable and lacks credibility. That's a network saying that the rating system lacks credibility. Think about that.
Well, because when you have been telling somebody for a long time something is like this, and then suddenly you tell them, you know what? It's completely changed because we're figuring it out a different way now, and it's like that. Then you were wrong at some fucking point in this juncture, and they are, I would think, justified in trying to find out how and why.
Here's more from the quote. Further, a comparison with data from other measurement products, including others from Nielsen itself, exposes a fundamentally flawed methodology in big data. We are disappointed by Nielsen's lack of cooperation, transparency, and accountability with its network partners as we work to resolve this issue. We're talking about wrestling, we're focusing on this, and we're hearing about this complaint. We don't know who else is complaining about this. Because it all comes back to this is what advertisers are going to go off. We don't know who else is complaining about this and how many complaints they're getting, but it sounds like they're being standoffish, at least with CW.
Well, and apparently there was the Media Rating Council is the one who accredits companies like Nielsen that, give the ratings and impact television. And there was a report that the MRC was weighing whether to strip Nielsen's Big Data Plus panel accreditation or give them more time to correct several technical and methodological, the way they do things. that thing that they could correct. But now the MRC CEO has said a statement that they are not going to strip accreditation. Their process is annual, and they conduct rigorous annual audits of the service to reaffirm the status of blah, 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 blah. And a bunch of corporate speak about, well, it could become C, it could become SA. But this is, maybe it'll settle down, whatever. But at the same point, over the next year, especially AEW's numbers need to be better, not worse, with all the other things going on, or we could be, just in a one-horse race. Even if the second horse isn't Seabiscuit, but an old swayback nag, at least it's two horses. We could live. The starter's gun may shoot one of our horses, and it's named Tony.
And if WBD is being shopped, you know that one of the buyers will see the streaming numbers even if we don't get them.
And that's another thing is the point that I made the other day on one of the broadcasts we did. For Tony to say he doesn't know the numbers, how is he supposed to negotiate for rights fees with the streaming people if the streaming people are not obliged to tell him how many people are streaming his fucking program? So I don't know what kind of fucking deal is going on there.
Yeah, they're going to say, I wish you had a star like a Cody Rhodes or a CM Punk. You have a vehicle with no star right now.
Yeah, that's, again, the crossovers and the cross promotions and this other show on our network needs a fucking actor that has done horror movies. Oh, CM Punk or Rhea Ripley, the new queen of the screen pretty soon. Whatever. They're not looking for Willow Nightingale.
Should Tony sign Braun Strowman? Then you have a package you can go to a network with.
Well, yeah, but then what match do you make? Besides the fact that I think the WWE probably got that fucking show done to begin with, or elsewise they wouldn't be so prominently featured. But what match would you have? The entire roster versus Braun Strowman? And can Braun Strowman fall down anymore without a part of his body falling off?
I would just have him continue the eating onto Dynamite. And then you could see more.
He would eat the rest of the roster.
You could see more of this kind of eating later on formerly known as Braun Strowman Eats His Way Through America.
No, that's the thing. This week, Braun Strowman will eat Mike Spitball Bailey.
See, one last thing I'll say, at least, about the ratings here. And I think I've said this before, but, what we're looking at, the other thing we have to take into the account is this is not wrestling in a boom period. This is not wrestling where anything is really hot or uniquely taking off right now. There's not a lot of buzz beyond the everyday buzz from wrestling fans. It's a cool period right now. So these numbers, I would like to see, how would SmackDown be if things were hot? We don't know. And the same thing with Dynamite. I mean, it's been forever since it was hot. I guess you could say Blood and Guts. I mean, that is part of the story. Blood and Guts was their biggest show in a while. And both methodologies were 8,000 away. It was approximately the same number.
Yeah.
But nothing's in a boom period. We don't know. Again, we're looking at the numbers right now for wrestling while it's chilly.
It's chilly. Well, and here's another
'Cause it's
thing
not
that
ice cold, but it's not
yeah,
hot.
I know.
Yeah.
It just reminds me of Nikolai Volkov when he tried to be a stand-up comic. I'm so cool, I feel a chilly. Uh, Nobody's talking about the WWE. Just it's not necessarily a self-inflicted wound, but they hampered themselves over the past year. They have changed how the fans and where the fans watched every single one of their fucking programs and disrupted all of those habits. And they're still doing these numbers. The shows have made moves to where you can't, in some cases, compare the new numbers with the old numbers because it's a different universe or platform, whatever the fuck. But you can't tell me that at least temporarily and maybe even permanently, some people haven't stopped watching a show they used to watch because they don't get the thing now, but they might have started watching another one. But it's been a disruption. Whereas AEW, for better or worse, has been on the same stations at approximately the same days and times for the past 5 years, and their numbers continue to trickle downward. That's just the way it is.
Again, it's very interesting that SmackDown consistently, there's a big difference between the one method and the other. And with Dynamite, it crisscrosses at times. I mean, that's why I'm not just dismissing some people. I mean, it sounds like CW is just dismissing this entire method. But if it's not affecting, see, I wish I knew more about how it's affecting everything else, and I just don't.
The only thing we've gotten is, most regular sports are doing the same or a little bit better, and most other programs aren't affected to any degree, but we need to see how that is.
How many shows that skew to the younger demographics? See, those are the shows I want to know how those were hit specifically. I don't expect I don't expect it to hurt the NFL. I don't.
at the same time, those skewed people, the younger demographic, and before this new methodology, AEW was not doing as good in as it once was.
Right.
So this is not. Everybody thinks, well, this is young people's wrestling. Well, not as much anymore. We'll keep up on all this. We'll stay on top of everything.